Are all the executive committee members up this way? Okay,
Yep.
all right. We'll call this meeting of the executive committee to order. Take the roll call, please.
Mayor.
Here.
Benefield. Brooks.
Here.
Freitag. Frissalone.
Here.
Gould.
Here.
Hart. Moran.
Here.
Ocala.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
And Eustace.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Mr. Frissalone, would you like to lead us on the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a number of sets of minutes, the first one being the executive committee of August 4th.
So moved?
Moved. Second. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have executive session minutes from the executive committee from August 4th.
Moved?
Moved. Second. Is there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have the executive committee minutes from August 11th. Moved.
Second.
Second. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Is there any old business to bring forward today? Mr. Weigel, you did mention something to me the other day that I think we're going to our old business. Do you remember what it was, Tom?
Yeah, this was, the fee schedule was brought up at our last county board meeting concerning waiving the fee for a special use permit for Echo Housing. And I meant to bring it up last week. I'd like you to sign it to our committee so that we can review that. We're meeting next Tuesday, so we could put it on our agenda for next Tuesday.
Okay, so it's already, it's
scheduled for
going to be assigned on time. Okay.
Okay.
All right, very good. Okay, is there any other old business to bring forward today? Then under new business, we're going to get to the IMRF participation and discussion. And maybe I'll ask Mary just to give us a real quick briefing on the legislation that was passed that pertains to county board members participating in the retirement program. So Mary, why don't you just kind of tell us what perhaps that legislation says?
Essentially, the legislation requires members to document that they do in fact put in 600 hours of time on official county business. It's really not a new requirement except for the actual documentation. County board members have always had to devote 600 hours of time to be eligible for IMRF. The documentation is a new requirement. The additional requirement is that the county board pass a resolution which affirmatively states that they expect the position to require 600 hours of time devoted to official county business. If the county board fails to pass that resolution, then the entire county board is no longer eligible for participation in IMRF. With regard to documenting the 600 hours, county board members are required to file a report on a monthly basis by the 10th of the month. If it's not done by the 20th, it's considered not filed or late. If county board members were to miss 2 months in a row, they are once again found ineligible to participate in IMRF, and those decisions are irrevocable, so they can't be changed once the decisions are made.
Okay. And the legislation also does not let any future county board members from participating.
That's correct.
So
anyone who might be elected at this November election is not eligible for IMRF, no matter what you do.
No matter what, they can never be part of our.
That's correct.
Okay. So this is really just making for accommodation. They're excluding county board members from participating in IMRF, they're making an accommodation for those who are currently in the plan.
Correct.
And people who are not in the plan cannot opt in now.
Correct.
Correct. So, okay, so I'm just gonna open it up. I mean, I know people have asked a number of questions, which we'll try to answer. You know, you can, for those of you who are participants, you can contact Paul Parisi. I did, and he will tell you what your options are if you're a current participant in IMRF. Okay, so, Mike?
First, I'd like to say that when I ran for office, I ran to serve the community, not to gain a perk. And when I was elected, I made the decision that I would not accept an IMRF, not participate, and I also committed myself to get rid of the program for the county board members. I don't believe it should be a program that we should have here. I'm not going to dispute the 600-hour thing. I think we work way more than that. That's only 12 hours a week. We spend a lot of time in here. But people are coming to this board to serve the community. They shouldn't be coming here to get a perk like a pension. I think the intent of the law in saying that no new board members should be on December 1st is basically to get rid of the system completely. So to me, to continue to vote for keeping the system on for those board members that have been in it before doesn't make sense. That's not what the intent of this law is. So I think what we should do right now is move forward a resolution to eliminate it for all members effective November 30th. This kind of takes everybody out of the mix. We're all on equal footing, and we're done.
You do.
And
Make that motion?
yeah, I'd like to make that motion that basically we eliminate the program for all current and future board members, which happens by the law anyway, effective November 30th.
I'll second that.
So the motion is to opt out. Now, we'll have discussion. So we got a motion and a second to opt out. Mr. Brooks?
One of the good things about going second, you get to plagiarize other people's speeches. I ran for office without any perks as well. I certainly wasn't looking for one, but I never considered IMRF as a perk. I never looked at it as such. I looked at whatever, when I ran, my intent was to serve the people of not only District 8 of all of Will County, and I felt in the 8 years that I've been here that I've done that. So I've never really considered anything that came along with running for that was in place at that time as a perk. I've never considered that, but I do feel that we all do put in a lot of time with this county board. I've always been trying to proactive in that, because I think even those of you that are not in leadership, you know that you do commit. You come into Joliet, you commit a lot of time. So I've never even looked at any of the any benefits, anything associated with serving as a Will County board member as a perk. I never considered it as that, and I still don't. And so I certainly would be opposed to that motion. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask committee, any committee members first? Chuck?
I definitely didn't run to get perks. We ran to get on the board. But 14 years ago, nobody was really having a discussion on IMRF or pensions for elected officials. We were plush with cash, things were going well, we were in a good economy. But we have seen this state go downhill for the last several years, with pensions being a huge issue here. I'm really sorry that this was actually a political smackdown by the state legislature on a county north of us, and decided that this was a way that they were going to get back at this one county, and that they were then going to make this impact. They had municipalities, they had townships, and they got all this pulled off. Why are they not taking a look at pensions across the board? I'm voting yes for this because I think it's the right thing to do to get rid of this. I'm not, and I will run again just because I don't have a pension in a system that I think is more of on volunteer work. It's not my full career. But it is an opportunity for the state to really take a look at pensions across the board. Don't just sit here and focus on one group because you can and you're mad at them, and so you're going to do something to try to tear that group down. Get it together and make sure that you get the entire state under control.
But by the way, just to clarify, this motion would be just to place it on the county board agenda for a full county board vote. You know, the decision's not made at this committee, just so everybody understands the full board has to vote on this. Is there any other committee members that like to, Don? Go ahead.
That one's not working. There,
okay.
there you go. There
There
it's
you
on.
go.
It's on now.
It's on now.
It's on, yay, all right. I'm not a participant in IMRF, don't intend to become a participant in the IMRF, but where I have a little bit of an issue is when someone makes life decisions and has an expectation of what they're going to get at the other end of their working career, and then, you know, when you're in the middle of that, you're already too late to change those decisions on how you're going to retire and what you're going to base that retirement on, to then pull the rug out from underneath those people. That, to me, I got an issue with that, I guess. In other words, that's why the legislature put in there that the people that are already in the program could stay in the program. We don't know what the circumstances are for all of those people. I don't know how many people on this board participate. But I am a little bit leery of saying this person is planned for their end of career, and this is, you know, how many nickels they've got in their pot, and this is what they're going to do with them and how they're going to make their existence going forward. And then we say, you know what, you can't participate anymore when it's still allowed by the statute. To me, I have a little bit of a problem with that. So I guess we'll see how it looks when it comes out at the county board. But right now, I got some hard thinking to do about that, I guess, because people have made these decisions. They've based what they're going to do when they retire on those decisions. And now it's kind of like when they talked about changing Social Security and they talked about, well, if you're under 50, we're going to do this to you. You know, and at 50 is too late. You know, people have already made those decisions. They put all the nickels in the right pockets. And, you know, if you're going to change those things at that late date, you have to consider what that does to the people who are involved. So I'm a little bit leery of the whole thing, so we'll talk about it next week, I guess.
Okay, any other committee members like to make comment? Steve?
I didn't take the IMRF because I thought it was wrong to do, just like Mike. I agree with everything that Mike said. And what Chuck brought up about the other government bodies like townships, cities, state, you know, they all should be included in the same thing. But the point that I think everyone really has to look at is these jobs are supposedly considered, even though at the county board, I would say you're putting in, if you're doing your job real well, you're doing 30 hours or 40 hours a week anyway. But it's still called a part-time job. And when you run for state rep, you know ahead of time, that's, you're there for a while, but you come home for a long time. So if you're running for a township, that's how many hours a week? I mean, you're always on duty, but when you take these positions, you know in advance that this is a part-time job with part-time pay, and you shouldn't have IMRF, you shouldn't have that. You know, that's, like Mike called it, a perk. So, you know, I just wanted to make the point that it is part-time. Even though we work full-time, the job actually is part-time. And so I concur with Mike and with Chuck.
I think Ray was next.
Who's next, Ray?
Thank you. To get to your point, Don, I don't believe this law, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, I don't believe this law will remove anybody that's currently vested. So for the individuals that are already on this board, that are already currently vested and are counting on that money, they are going to get what they were promised. The other individuals that aren't vested, you're never guaranteed to even get to the vesting point. That's in the public's hands, and if they don't vote you in the next time, so your plan could go afoul just based on, you know, the next vote. So I think it really only is going to affect the individuals that aren't there, but you can't base your future plans on something that's never going to be a given anyway, even if, because you never know if you're going to, you know, you're only one election away from losing that whole thing anyway.
Okay, good. Gretchen?
The only thing I would say about the whole part-time thing is that, yes, this is not a full-time job, but it takes us away from those full-time jobs. And we don't contribute as much to Social Security because we're not working those hours at those jobs, we're working here instead. And so I think that's something you have to consider is the total impact to, like Don Moran said, like to the plan of how you get to the end. So, so I think that's something that maybe some people are not considering.
Bob Howard.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you. You know, one thing that keeps coming through on this over and over and over again, and I do agree with this, that we should not take the IMRF, is we consistently say this is a part-time job, and I believe it truly is a part-time job. And I think we should take this a step further and remove all the benefits, meaning the health care coverage that we also receive too, because that's almost $18,000 a year out of taxpayers' pockets. So I think we need to put our money where our mouths are and say, you know what, we identified a problem, we're fixing it, and we're also going to take a step further, I think, as individuals. And also, too, as I read through this law and the statements here, I have to ask Mary for a clarification on this. According to this, if you are elected county board member, you are not allowed to participate in IMRF. Does that mean all taxing bodies then, if you hold another position where you're actually drawing IMRF? And if something that we need to look at that legislatively to correct that then too?
No, it would not mean that. In other portions of the statute, it clarifies that exact issue. So if
Okay.
you are eligible under another position, you would still receive the pension that is, that goes along with that other position. It's only the county board pension that you would not be eligible for.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify one thing. To Don's point, you talk about ending this November 30th. I think the actual proper way to do it would be to end it with the individual's term. Because Don is correct in the sense that if you have an individual that's at 8 years and will hit the vested point and has made that decision, then you are actually pulling that away, pulling the rug out from under that individual.
Well, you're either in or you're out. You can't say for those who are, yeah, you're either in or you're out, is how I see it. Mary, would you agree? You either stay in or stay out. So, is there any other, yes? Judy?
Mary, so I wanted to ask you, because I was a little unsure. So those who are vested right now, they would not lose their IMRF if we were to vote to not have it?
They would not lose the benefits they have already accrued, but they would not be able to further accrue additional credits. So it would stop.
As
Okay.
a county
As of the
board
time.
member. But
Correct, as a county board member.
Okay.
But you could let it sit and then pick up on another IMRF qualified position. somewhere.
Correct. You could enter into another IMRF position and then add credits that way.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, you can call the IMRF office, they'll answer. Like I say, I did talk to Paul Parisi briefly, he kind of gave me, they don't even have all the answers, by the way, because it's new for them, even though my understanding is that they initiated the legislation. But, you can suspend it if you choose to. You can draw your money out if you choose to. But if you call call IMRF, they can give you the options for those of you who are participating.
Mike, I have a question.
Mike?
Yeah, I was just going to say, based on what Steve said, this gives us the opportunity at Will County to be a leader. We be an example of the first people to do this. No one else has done this yet, to say, okay, we see what the law is, let's stop right now for everybody. So, we've been trying to say, and some of the things we've been doing with our bond ratings and stuff, we're trying to show that we're a leadership county, and this would be another way to show that.
The second county, the other one opted out.
Well, right.
Humboldt County already opted out? They already did?
That's the one that started all this.
Yeah, okay.
Can I? Suzanne has a comment.
Suzanne?
And we had talked about this before in legislative. If this was all done in good intentions, it would be a whole different gamma. This was political. It was going after the counties. You know, there's a long story behind it, and everyone knows how I feel about it. I mean, I never did take the pension, and for whatever reason of, you know, your philosophy or why you would take it or not, that was just my own prerogative. But for the fact that the municipalities and townships and everything was pulled, and they allegedly are going to go back and put them on it as well, I do think no elected official should really have a pension onto the local level. But I do have to say, if we didn't get rid of it, I would go in, buy into it, just so I can prove. I don't know about the rest of you. I'm not part-time. I definitely do 1,000 hours and for sure 600 hours, but I just had to add that because I think that was the whole thing of saying that a lot of the county board members, but looking in this room right now, I know majority of us do over 600 hours, so I just don't want anyone to think that that's why county was at all focused on thinking that county board members, it just became a political arena.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, now that I'm tracking it and writing it down, I'm at 38 hours this week so far, just so everyone knows, so. Of course, this is usually one of the busier weeks, though, too, so. Yeah, I'm going to only make one other comment if there's, go ahead, Judy.
Jim, you mentioned that when you called in that they don't know all the answers on it yet. So when do they think they'll know all the answers on that?
You know, they know, he knows primarily how it's going to work. I mean, I think they're just looking at process internally, how they would process things. But they know your options if you're currently vested.
Okay, and so have they contacted you, has IMRF contacted you, or maybe Herb?
I contacted them.
Oh, you contacted them?
Yes. So generally, they will not contact you. We have Bruce Freefeld, our chief of staff, has been in contact with Paul Parisi. He was here yesterday, actually, doing a workshop for the employees. Bruce once again talked to him. They haven't officially put it in, I guess, written form, but Bruce continues to stay in contact with them also.
Okay, I just was wondering if it was still
And if you
some
do have
questions.
specific questions, submit them to the county board office, and Bruce will submit those or talk to Paul Parisi, our representative for IMRF, okay?
Okay, thanks.
You know, the only other comment I'm going to make is, you know, are things a perk or aren't they a perk? You know, I argued against pay raises for elected officials based on the total package of compensation. And it is a form of compensation that you can opt in or opt out of. And board members, some opt in, some opt out, some come in, some come out. I mean, they may change it at times. It is a form of compensation. And we argued that for not raising elected officials' salaries. You know, and there's another issue that I'm not going to bring up today, but it's also another voluntary program that maybe we consider later on. So we have a motion and a second. This is just to move it to the county board for discussion and a vote. And that's what we got.
I just have one more thing to say. So what I know from various different things is, so a lot of the people feel that IMRF should not be something that we offer to county board members. And there's people who support that idea. As Bob mentioned, then he thinks people should not have health care because that's another thing and that costs. And people opt out, sometimes people opt out of one, sometimes they opt out of both. And then also we need to think too what Gretchen had mentioned and Don saying, you know, because a lot of people do spend a lot of time, you are paying less into Social Security, and you maybe were counting on that as part of your retirement because you've given your time and devotion. I know Herb spends a lot of time in his community, in his district, as does Jim, working for the people. I've worked with them, so I know that. So I think we need to really sit and think about all the different avenues and decide what is the best thing for us as a county as we move forward. So, thank you.
All right, Chuck.
I have one question for Mary. We're talking about the county board here and ECHO. Are we involved in any kind of voting on the countywides and their ability to participate in ECHO? And this legislation, I don't think addresses that, and I'm kind of curious on why that might be. Because I would think countywides are in the same boat as we are.
This legislation does not involve the pensions for the countywide electeds. I do think that the ECHO was eliminated. I don't think that's any longer an option
For the countywides, but they're in
for the countywide. That was
IMRF.
eliminated at some other,
And they're in
previously.
what other kind of pension? But they're in a
But
pension.
they have the
IMRF.
IMRF that the employees have.
Okay.
Correct.
So that has been
But there
eliminated.
could be electeds
ECHO's-
who opted into ECHO prior to its elimination, and they would still be in
They would
ECHO.
still be an ECHO.
Yeah.
But I guess then the debate becomes philosophically whether they should actually have a pension at all as part of their compensation package.
That's a discussion for your state legislature.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is there any other comments, questions? Let's take the roll on this. This is to place it on the agenda for county board.
Mayor
Yes.
Brooks. Freitag. Frizalone.
Yes.
Gould. Hart. Moran. Ogella. Weigel. Mustis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, then this will be placed on the county board agenda next week. Okay, First Midwest Bank lease. Nick,
Come
do
up
you
there, or you want me to go to the podium, or just from
No,
here?
you can just stay there. Yeah, just stay there.
Good morning. We have a request on the agenda to talk about the First Midwest lease. I'll just give you a quick history, and Jim Rolfe is here, so he may want to say a few words too. When we started the month, we were thinking we were going to extend their lease a few more months, but since that time, there's been a fast track, and their desire is to move out more quickly. In your packet was just attached last night or this morning, a letter from Jim Rolfe that is asking for basically two actions by the board. One is to waive the 30-day notice requirement, which was part of the original lease we passed a lease in, I think it was in 14. And the other is to waive the final month of their lease, which their plan is to be out and operational in their new facility on October 17th. In lieu of that, we discussed this in committee, they are leaving their furniture, which in the packet is attached an estimate, a conservative estimate of approximately $116,000 worth of furniture, which several board members, the State's Attorney's Office and the Executive's Office did a quick tour recently, and it is very...
They want it, huh?
Well, it's good quality. It may not, we couldn't go maybe and sell it for that price, but if we had to go purchase new furniture, we believe would exceed what we're giving up as far as rent. The other benefit, I'll say for board members' sake, is we're going to have this building in place for at least 18 more months. This gives us an opportunity, once First Midwest moves out of the first floor operations, we can move another county agency in there almost immediately with some minor work, just running phone lines and maybe putting up a couple of interior walls, which we believe is going to be very cost effective. We're speaking of the drug court, which is in the basement of 121. We are finishing up work in the MCO, and everybody else from the State's Attorney's Office is going to move out of there. The drug court, we did not have a location identified yet, and this will save us rent to go put them somewhere else, because as all of us know, the goal is to trade the 121 in another deal. So there's a benefit of saving rent for drug court. We get furniture it's basically move-in ready. Julie McCabe's department can pick up their files and everything else and move right in virtually. First Midwest has been a great partner to work with through this entire process, through the acquisition. They've given the county a lot of benefits through use of the parking lot before we owned the property. They've been a good tenant as far as us being the landlord, and I think the county executive recommends we do this.
I would concur. I think this is actually we love First Midwest Bank, Jim. There you are, okay. But we would like to see, I think, you move out as a tenant of the counties and let us utilize the space for our needs. So I do think this is in the county's best interest, so I don't know if there's any other comments. Someone like to motion?
Yeah, I would just say, the furniture is good quality at this point. I mean, it's not destroyed, so it would certainly replace some of the things that we have around the county offices and different offices. So I think it's a pretty good deal.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Did you have a comment, Reagan?
Yeah, I was able to go to that meeting and just concur with Nick and Mike that the furniture is an excellent quality. I mean, some of these partitions were in value possibly over $35,000 that they're great. And all the furniture is in more of executive style, not some of the, the other run-of-the-mill stuff that we have. But the relationship with Jim Rolfe and Midwest is a relationship that's priceless, and I think this is something that we should do. So I'd like to make that motion.
Okay. Second. Motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Jim.
Goodbye.
Get out of there, will you? No, we need the space, no. So, by the way, that was all in one resolution, correct? Both the notification.
Both actions.
Both actions were in one resolution, correct? Okay. All right, very good, thanks. Okay, moving on. Will County Emergency Management System. Nick, did you want to pull this off for today?
If I could just make one quick comment.
Yeah.
We're going to ask this be tabled for this month. We recently did receive a formal kind of informational item from the State's Attorney's Office. We need to do this. A number of board members on ETSB are serving with an expired term, but we will have a formal write-up for next month. And the gist of it is this, is with the consolidation that's occurring, we're going to be reducing board members, and we're going to reflect that in the recommendation. There's 4 dispatch centers that are consolidated into one. The recommendation will be that there's 1 representative for that dispatch center, so in a net loss of 3 board members. But we will be proposing adding an additional public member, which can be from whatever background, and we might target business person or emergency management person to add some more depth to the board. But the board currently has representation from both dispatch center, police, fire, and the county. But we're hoping with that action, and now that we know how to deal with the terms of the existing board members, that we can bring at least the majority of the board current, and then some of them we're going to have to wait until their terms expire before we, or they consolidate before we appoint new people, because the direction was once they're appointed, they have to serve out the term, and the number of board members that their positions are going to go away with the consolidation. So I'll explain all that in a memo, but now that we've got some direction from the state's attorney, I think it's clear the path forward, so.
Okay, so someone like a motion to table?
So moved.
Move, second. Take the roll.
Mayor,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Freitag. Yes. Sisselon.
Yes.
Gold.
Yes.
Hart. Moran. Ayala. Yes. Weigel. And Eustace.
Yes. Okay, next we have authorizing lease with Bessinger's Pharmacy for community pharmacy within the community health center. Can I make, before I'd like to get a comment, and before we even ask for input here. I have expressed a concern whether we should even continue to provide those type of services with, now that affordable health care is in place, where people have options. Most people, I think the number was like 95% of the people are insured that go to the health center, which means they can have options going elsewhere. And there's a lot of other alternatives. When we started the community health center, there was a lot of uninsured, there was not a lot of options. And there was, but now we've had additional federally qualified healthcare centers come in. People are insured, so they have primary healthcare physicians in the private sector. You can use hospitals. So I think about the overall viability of our community health center. When we have limited resources, do we continue to put resources there where there's a lot of other providers? Or do we put those resources, say, back in mental health, where there's not as many providers, where we would have where we do fill the void? So, so now that gets me to, a lease, and of course, I suppose we always have the right to give notification, suspend the lease without damages. So that's one of my overall questions. And then specifically, I'd ask about the process and how this firm was selected. But so I guess I'll just throw that out for discussion. Should we perhaps, and Judy, may I look at you a little bit since you have that the committee? Should we have a discussion with the health board on whether we should really continue those services or whether those resources should go to areas where we can fill the void?
Those are all good points that you bring up, and I think we should have that discussion. I think that until we have the discussion, I would really rather not have that eliminated. It makes sense to go forward with that now. How long is the lease for, do we know? 5 years. Oh, it's for 5 years. Yeah. So maybe we make the lease, maybe we can do the lease a little less long than that, have the discussion before we eliminate it. While the people do have lots of other options available, sometimes they don't have the ability to get to those other places, maybe with transportation. So I think we need, and I would maybe like to see what the health executive director has to say too.
I was saying with a pharmacy, and like you said, there may be transportation issues for folks, but there's plenty of options for pharmacists. Mike, did you have your hand?
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the lease term. We need to look at a lot of things here. We're going to be looking, hopefully really soon here, at what we're going to do with the health department. There are a lot of things that we need to throw on the table. Can this part of the building, and the clinic part, be used as our future lab if we decide to get out of this part of the business? All of those things are going to be on the table as we look at what we're going to do with the health department, which hopefully will come in very soon. So for us to get in a 5-year term, I've been looking through here, I don't see an out for us, Mary, or Nick, do you know if there's an out for us? But all I'm seeing is this 5-year.
Yeah.
And I think,
the issue here is that Walgreens was at that location.
Yeah,
And Walgreens has chosen not to stay. So Basinger's is filling a void, if you will, by the absence of Walgreens. Now, some of your questions, you should probably have Susan Olenek come down here and address those specifically. But in terms of this resolution and this lease, it's basically to fill a gap, if you will, by Walgreens not staying at that location.
Has it been vacant for any period of time?
No.
It hasn't, so to speak.
No, this just came up now.
Okay. But too, and Sue, come on down, but I don't necessarily expect you to comment on whether we should continue. Those are policy decisions. Yeah. And certainly we would ask you for your input. By the way, the only other part I would mention that I do think the Community Health Center fills a big void for dental services. And I want to make it clear that I think we should continue dental services, and whether that's using or getting another mobile unit or whatever, or carve out a section of the Community Health Center for dental services. We still have a lot of demand, and that's normally not covered. It's not always covered by insurance, and it's not covered by affordable health care. Dental is not, so. Sue?
Good morning,
Morning.
Chairman, committee members, other county board members. I also want to introduce Mary Marigos. If you haven't met Mary, Mary is the CEO of the Community Health Center. I brought her with me in case there are questions that I don't have answers to. She can certainly speak to those questions. If we could just back up in relation to the larger issue that you're mentioning, and I know you mentioned that I don't have to comment on it, but I would like to just say one thing, and that is that, you know, I would welcome a discussion like that, because I guess what happens is the issue kind of comes up and swirls around and then goes away and comes up and swirls around again and goes away. And there is, you know, no question to the fact that our resources are continually being more limited and more limited. And, you know, we have to look at what we can afford to do. Now, I'm not saying yes to anything, I'm not saying no to anything, but I think that we need to have a discussion so we're at least all on the same page and moving forward in the same direction. It takes a lot of time and energy and money to operate the entire health department, including the health center. And we want to make sure that we're all moving forward in the same direction with the same purpose.
Okay.
So,
Is there any questions for, you might ask? I got Don, I'll let you go first.
I
There you go.
got to ask you, because everybody can hear me?
It's on.
Yeah,
My
it's
question
on.
is, how do we select Basingers? Is there a bid process?
yes, we actually went through an RFI process. We put an RFI, request for information, out August 8th. And that RFI, we have copies if you'd like to see it. The request for information is actually the same process we used the first time when we entered into the agreement with Walgreens. There weren't as many people interested back in 2012 when we put out the original RFI. This time we had 5 responses, but the RFI basically went over a statement of need, talked about the background of the community health center. It laid out qualifications, actual things that we need them to be able to do for us. And then it talked about the procedures of the process, who to contact, and how we might be making that selection. So that went out August 8th. It was advertised. It was put on Demand Star, which is where we typically put our bids, et cetera. And we received responses. The responses were due back August 22nd. They were received. Interviews took place. Mary and her staff conducted interviews with several people that were interested that responded to the RFI, and there were actually 5 that we formally entertained and interviewed. Joliet Professional Services, Codo Pharmacy, J.D. Brown Pharmacy, SureCare Pharmacy, Genoa Healthcare, and Basingers. And then based upon the interviews and based upon their responses to the request for information as far as, you know, negotiating what they can do for us and who's the best fit, Basingers was chosen. Basingers, as you know, is a local pharmacy, so we were happy about that. They also will be providing some increased hours at the community health center with their lease, longer hours than what Walgreens were able to provide for us, and that they're also going to do delivery, which is great. If we do have many of our clients and patients that have difficulty getting to the health center, and if Basingers is willing to, you know, deliver, it's going to be great for our patients.
Yes, Sue, are they going to have any, basically, or they have any build-out cost, do you know? Or is it pretty much ready to go?
Well, there is a shell. Walgreens is taking out their equipment pretty much as we speak. However, Mary had a conversation with some of the crew that was there, was it yesterday? Today. They're taking out some shelving that looked like it was going to go to scrap. So Mary intervened and said, you know, I think that, I think the people coming in might be interested, so we are going to see if you know, they want to get some of that equipment. But basically, it would be a shell, and Basingers would have to come in and put in, you know, pharmacies require like specific shelving for the way they supply and store the goods. But it would be mostly a shell. But there is a sink in there. There is some cabinetry in there. Of course, there's countertops. What else is in there that would stay? Is that about it?
So the build-out cost would be probably minimal?
Minimal,
Okay,
correct.
all right.
Yes, and
Question, so
It costing any of the taxpayer dollars, or they're just coming in as a rentor?
They're coming in, they're
taking
renting.
care, and just let me follow, and so they're actually providing a service that even, let's take a look at this 50,000 foot, we could have a pharmacy available on site somewhere for people to be able to come in and use, whether our mental health or our health department, health center is going forward or not.
Well,
Could we not?
the pharmacy that is there, the genesis of the pharmacy being on site was for this 340B program, which is a discounted prescription drug program for the community health center patients. Now, just health center patients don't have to, they're not the only ones who can use that service.
Correct.
I could go give them my prescription. Somebody who's visiting the health department for our WIC client, oh, I got that prescription in my purse, they can go over there. They don't have to be a health center patient
Client.
to use that service.
So this, I mean, us giving them a 5-year lease, or, you know, we might need to opt out, but it sounds like this is a service that could be there no matter what.
Right, and it's a tremendous service for our clients and our patients. You have to understand that you want to make sure that your patients are compliant. In other words, if the doctor or the provider prescribes them medication, you want them to take that medication and follow the guidance and the instructions of the doctor. And if that patient can't just walk over, 150 feet and get that prescription and walk out with it, that's going to assure pretty much that they're going to be compliant. If they have to
That would
leave.
also include mental health.
Yes.
So, I
Yes.
mean, even if we would go in and focus our program on the mental health industry and, we would still need access to medication.
Yes.
Almost more importantly, that these guys have quick access to it if they're having to be given prescriptions to deal with mental health issues.
Well, they run a complete formulary, and right
I
now,
think
as
that's
a
a good
matter of
thing.
fact, our psychiatric clients, our adult psychiatric clients from behavioral health have been being seen by the psychiatrists and the staff, the providers over at the community health center. And any of the psychotropic drugs or any of the meds that they've been prescribed, they can get at well, they can't get it today because it's not open, but they will be getting it at the pharmacy there. And to Mr. Gould's point, it is filling a need. That service is tremendous for our patients and for the campus. So we would like to see it continue. Now, changing the terms of the contract is an option. The other option that I think we're going to need to add some language to anyway, after the state's attorney took some further look at this, we would like to add some language that requires the tenant to move out within a specific amount of time. What's happening right now is Walgreens provided us notice within the requirements of the contract. However, there isn't any language in the current contract that says if you're not providing services, you have to move out within, 60 days or 30 days or whatever. So technically, if the way that the lease is now, if they were to they're still not providing services, they're getting ready to move out, as long as they continue to pay that rent, they can still have that spot. But that serves no purpose for us. We want a pharmacy in there. So, I ask that you go ahead and move this forward to the county board. However, we would like to be able to work with state's attorney to add some language in there to, increase the meat of the document so that they have a reasonable amount of time to exit the building. I would say 30, 60 days, so that we in the process could be working with another vendor and get them in as soon as possible. We want to have somebody in that space.
Well, I might have it, I think, Mary, that two things I'd like to see in that contract, along with and show some actual damage that they would have to pay if they just stopped operations.
I don't think they just stopped operations. I do think they opted out pursuant to the terms of the present contract.
Well, in the present contract, if I'm hearing Sue correctly,
Yes.
present contract, this says you'll pay the rent.
Right.
You don't have to provide
It
the services.
You're right.
I'm talking
And-
about if they stop services during the terminal lease, that it would be, there'd be some kind of damages associated with that.
Correct.
And the other thing I'd like to see in the lease is that we are able to terminate the lease sometimes during the term, even if we have to compensate them for that. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to hurt them. I mean, they're going to have some investment here and so forth. Even if it was reasonable to say, you know, we're going to have some kind of compensation if you we terminated early, I think that would not be inappropriate either. So if we can work those out, I think it would be great. Okay, Don, you were next.
Yeah, two things. What Chuck said about this, the whole health services thing is up in the air. 5 years is a long lease. What Jim just said about having a termination thing in there for us. What I wouldn't want to see is if we stopped utilizing this thing to the extent that we do today, the pharmacy, that we were kind of leasing a space to a pharmacy to operate for $700 a month, when it would cost some other pharmacy $3,000 a month to operate in the same area. You see what I'm saying? In other words, if somebody wanted to open up a pharmacy at the corner of Mills Road and Richard Street.
Yeah, it's a deal.
Okay, are we giving them an unfair advantage against another competing pharmacy by allowing them to operate in our facility? It's good if it's something for us, right? If they're providing a service to our constituents, to our patients that come to our facility. But if that facility is no longer utilizing 90% of the services or something, should we be in the business of subsidizing a pharmacy to operate in that neighborhood?
Well, I think their operation in our building is a little different than what their operation would be like in their own, one of their own buildings. For example, the hours are much shorter and they're limited. One of the points of discussion that we had with Basinger's and any of those vendors, as well as Walgreens initially, is that we don't want them in the building when we're not operating and we're not in the building. I mean, it just was could be another security issue, could be another, issue that we didn't want to have to deal with. So there is a few differences. Also, the square footage in the pharmacy is pretty small. That's going to make a difference in how much volume they can produce. But certainly, I see your point as to, the competition issue.
I agree with what you're saying, Jim. We need, all this language in here is for their benefit. They get a 5-year lease. They get 2 5-year options at their discretion, so they could be in there 15 years, and we have no control. They have a 180-day out if their prescribers fall under 13 people, they can get out. So it's all about them. There's nothing for us. I mean, if we did 2 years with options, mutual agreed options, at least we'd provide the service, which I think we need to do, but it'll give us option if we decide to do something else too.
Yeah, we need some flexibility now. Nick wanted to comment. I'll get back to Nick. Judy?
Sue, I wanted to ask, is there a cost to us to have this pharmacy in this building?
Well, the lease doesn't require that they pay any of the utilities. And really, there's no cost to us because, that space would be, heated and supplied with water, and the security guard would be there, and the lights would be on. But really, there isn't a real cost to us to operate it. They are paying us $700 a month for that particular space. We increased that amount from the previous vendor.
Okay, so there isn't a cost to us, but it's a definite benefit to our residents in Will County.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's a good idea to keep it with the changes to the lease so that, as you guys both have pointed out, it becomes beneficial to us, not just one side. So, thank you.
We will certainly work with State Attorney's Office and with the vendor to renegotiate some of these items that you've requested.
Okay. Nick, did you want to comment?
If I could just say one thing. The county executive is responsible for signing these leases. He's not negotiating, but I was involved a little bit when we did the Walgreens lease. And as Sue has already mentioned, we didn't have as much interest the first time. It was trying to bring a service to our residents. I serve actually on the President St. Joe's Health Board, the hospital board, and one of the biggest things that medical industry is trying to do is reduce return to the emergency room, that kind of stuff. And one of the biggest triggers for that is not getting your prescriptions filled and taking your prescriptions. And so having this service available to our residents right there so they get treated, they get a prescription, they can get it filled immediately. The other thing is, I don't do this ordinarily, but I grew up 5 minutes from the community health center and the health department. There used to be a pharmacy on, it's Mills
Yeah,
Road.
Mills.
It's Sugar Creek Pharmacy.
Sugar
It's been
Creek
gone
Pharmacy,
for
yeah.
years. There is no pharmacy nearby. My parents still live there. They have to go to New Lenox or across town to the west side of Joliet. So this is also, during the hours that we're open, filling a need for local residents who don't have the ability or can travel across town or to another community. So I know as government, we don't care where the marketplace is businesses, but this is filling a need for that community, and it's a value. And as Sue mentioned, there is some financial benefit through this 340B program too. That's part of why we do this also. So
Yes. Actually, if you have just a couple of more minutes, Mary would just like to explain to you a little bit more in detail about what the 340B program is, and it's really turned out to be a very good program for the agency. So if you have a couple more minutes.
Thank you. 340B is a federal program that's available to federally qualified health centers. And with that program, we have specific vendors. There are actually only 3 pharmaceutical vendors that we can select from. And we, through the pharmacy, can purchase medications. For example, a $50 inhaler we could get for 2 cents. And the pharmacist then tacks on an administration fee to the patient and a dollar fee to us for spending that, and then charges the patient accordingly. And when you bill that $2 drug to the insurance company, you could get perhaps $120 back. And so then the pharmacy takes a cut of that, and as do we. We have found that since we've been using this 340B program for about the last 15 months, we're taking in now about $35,000 a month. So it's a huge benefit to the patients because now there's no excuse for them really not to be able to get the medications that they need. It's very convenient for them, but also it's a huge bonus for us as well.
What if they're uninsured? I assume they then benefit from the very reduced cost.
Yes, they do. And the percentage of our uninsured is about 33%.
So
So,
in
yeah.
those cases for the uninsured under the 340B program, what type of pricing do you have for that group? I mean, is it actual cost reflected then, so they get it for like $3 or?
Yes, exactly. We have a sliding fee scale. If they're homeless and living in the shelter, they don't pay anything. And then after that, it's according to their revenue, their income.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Mary, I think that you've kind of heard the concerns about the contract. You'll address those along with Sue, and perhaps we can get all that done. If you can get it done by next week, I suppose we can leave it on the agenda. I think that's a tall order.
Well, actually, I mean, both of these issues are issues that I have discussed with Kevin. Kevin has been working very closely with Mary on this, so I think he's already begun these revisions, so I don't know that it is a tall order. I think that they will
Okay.
get done.
I'm thinking more
Other
on
than
their side.
Pharmacy.
Yeah, we'll have
Yeah,
to speak with the
making
vendor
sure.
and
Yeah, I'm thinking more on the
possibly.
vendor side, actually. They may want to need some time. We'll leave it on. We'll
Thank
leave it on, and if it's not, we'll just move it to the following month, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to place this on the county board agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. If I can make one other comment, and that is, Don, you being on the health board, and Sue, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Mary. I should think I remember that. Mary, that's an easy name. And Mary, I think that, we do need to have some discussion. Maybe we can help facilitate, Don, you can help facilitate and Sue, maybe you can help facilitate a meeting so we can start discussions with the health board. Nick, your office would be, of course, also very involved in that. But I do think we need to start talking about what is the future hold in relation to the services that perhaps we'll be providing at the health board, health department.
Everyone else, if you haven't been to the Community Health Center, we welcome your visit. We'll be happy to give you a tour and show you what the facilities we have there and introduce you to the healthcare providers.
I've been there many times, and we've even had county board members who have been clients there, even though they did have options. They said they always got very good service there.
Yes, thank you.
So, I'm not, I don't question the job that is done there. It's a great job. I actually like to see the dental expanded. That seems to would fill the bigger void for folks. But it's not a question whether you do a great job or not. That's, I want you to understand it, Mary, before you go. It's just where do our resources go long term.
We've also, because we have the distinction of being a federally qualified health center, we can be involved in the National Health Service Corps, which can repay up to $120,000 of the loan for a physician or a nurse practitioner. And that allows us, it's a little easier for us to attract providers. We now have 2 full-time, 2.4 FTE of behavioral health psychiatry. And we are now providing that psychiatry to the patients that were at the Will County Health Department. And we have what we call fully integrated behavioral health care. We recognize that at least a third, maybe a half of our patients who come for their physical health care have untended behavioral health issues. And so we're glad we're able to address those too.
And when I look at healthcare centers, the federally qualified healthcare centers, I wouldn't suggest that we only look at ours. We look at the viability of the others that are out there and whether they're going to be able to continue. Because I understand they have issues, especially sometimes attracting providers. So it would be a broad-based discussion, just so you know. We wouldn't just be picking on you, Mary. Yeah. So, all right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Okay. Okay. Number 5, let me get this up there. Authorizing a franchise agreement with the CMN-RU Company, Inc. Jim Harvey. Jim, this is probably something we do every 10 years or whatever. Oh, this is going to be a brand-new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this, commonly known as MetroNet, they're in Illinois, a new entrant into the cable TV field. John Campbell, General Counsel and Vice President, is here, and to make a brief presentation, but they were recently approved in the village of Plainfield at the end of last year, and then a couple of months ago in Romeoville, and I know they've got other communities, other municipalities that they're working with. And basically, they're a competitor to Comcast. And under the federal and state law, they're entitled to compete on a level playing field. But why don't I let Mr. Campbell introduce himself? And
before we do that, I just have a couple of questions on Mr. Campbell. I always like competition, by the way. Maybe I can get my TV bill under $100. But just in general, for the purposes here, that this would be, and Mary, I'm also looking at you on this. This is basically a franchise agreement we have for other cable providers currently and in the past, since there's been some consolidation. So we're basically, this is pretty much our standard franchise agreement that enables the companies to use our right-of-way to lay cable. Is that what basically this is?
yeah, Mary, you want me to jump in, or? In a nutshell, yeah.
Okay.
And it's, the federal law encourages competition, and this is the first, I think, major competition that Comcast has had. They've had a presence in Indiana, but basically what the law provides is that they're entitled to compete on a level playing field. The federal authorities have encouraged competition, but I mean, the practical side of that, it's very difficult once a provider gets in, puts in the infrastructure, for other people to come in and compete. So, you know, Metronet is somebody that's got a product that they think will be able to capture market that perhaps other people weren't interested in. But basically, it's the Comcast franchise agreement that we just renewed, as you know,
Yes.
recently, and it's basically the same terms, just plugging in Metronet, and then they see what the market is. I mean, they've got to put in the infrastructure. I think in Plainfield, it's approximately $2 million of infrastructure, you know, and they've got to compete for those customers. But that's the market, as the board's discussed.
We're here to make sure the playing field's level. Even
Right,
though government
the 5%'s the same
Government very
as
often
Comcast.
creates an unlevel playing field, but not here at Will County. Yeah, so we're not going to do that. Sir, we'll give you a few minutes.
Well, good morning, and I certainly appreciate it. We wouldn't want anything less than a level playing field to compete from. Just the Cliff Notes version of who Metronet is, we're a fiber-to-the-home provider, much like Google Fiber, if you've been following them in the news. What that means is that we deliver a all-fiber connection to each customer or our business that's part of our network. It's fiber all the way. Now, what that practically means is that we have unlimited bandwidth capacity that we can offer a customer. Currently, our network is configured to deliver a gigabit to a home or a business. Over time, as that need expands, we can increase the capacity of the network. We offer voice, video, and data services. Our cable services would be roughly equivalent to what you would see from any incumbent provider. And yes, we do offer the Cubs. So, and the White Sox for that.
Oh, there you go, okay. Want to make that an even playing field.
That's right.
Not level about the Cubs.
So, in terms of business, we can cover the waterfront. We've got a lot of innovative products that serve smaller end businesses that are affordable and helpful to them and their budgets, as well as serving the needs of, companies that would have corporate headquarters and, doing dark fiber connections. So we can cover the entire waterfront. In terms of the history of the company, although we're similar to Google, we've been around, unlike them, we've been around for 10 years. We currently provide services in 25 communities in Indiana. Our network passes approximately 150,000 homes and businesses, and we have 50,000 customers. So we've been in this game for a while. We've refined our business model, our construction techniques, and we can be extremely effective in the marketplace. As Jim alluded to, we started to move out of Indiana into Illinois, and that started with the village of Plainfield. We've since gone to Oswego and also to Romeoville. The reason that we're seeking the franchise today is because there are some unincorporated areas, Carillon, I'm sure you're all familiar with Carillon, that is contiguous to our build-out area that's in the county, and that's where we would initially start construction in Will County. And, as we expand to other communities, there would probably be other unincorporated areas that we pick up. So that's the Cliff Notes version. I don't know if there are any questions I can answer.
The question I would have, Mr. Campbell, is this, and that is that, we're here always to try to make sure all Will County residents have access. Obviously, in some areas, we know that's very difficult for providers of services like yours. But I would like some sense of what market areas that you intend on servicing, whether you're just going to keep up there and say that Plainfield, let me just say maybe more northern end, or if you can share with us your overall market plan on areas that you do think you're going to be serving.
Sure, we are actively discussing, expansion into several communities in Will County, and including even Joliet. A lot of this is a matter of can we get the permitting that allows us to deploy quickly. Is this something where, the community really wants what we're offering? So we are engaged in discussions with several municipalities, and hopefully that picture will become a little bit clearer in terms of where we're going to actually cover over the next year or so, but we're sort of in preliminary stages right now.
Yeah, we do have some very highly dense populations in unincorporated areas in various areas of the county, actually all over the county. And I'm not as concerned sometimes about those folks because the cost of the infrastructure is reasonable in relation to the market you potentially have. But sometimes I do think some of the what I will call rural residential areas, I'm not talking about necessarily farms, I'm talking about rural residential areas, seem to be excluded from accessing these services. So I'm going to ask you, based on your current operation, being in Indiana, I'm assuming that you have those types of areas probably in your market area. So how have you kind of addressed some of those areas to give reasonable access, reasonable access to a community?
First of all, it's a great question. We started out as a rural provider. The first 10 communities that we built were in rural areas as a result of a $106 million RUS loan. And since that point, we've obviously expanded into more metropolitan areas. We work closely with counties and communities to try to bring our services where they're wanted and needed. And we've had several successful partnerships with counties in Indiana and economic development groups with finding creative ways to bring our services to very underserved areas. So we would welcome opportunities to partner with Will County and the various municipalities within Will County to realize that same goal here.
Okay, very good. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Are you using current, you don't tap into current Wi-Fi that's our cable that's already down, you're laying your own, and are you taking this all the way up to the houses? How are your fiber optics being distributed?
Another great question. Yeah, we will be deploying our own proprietary fiber throughout the build-out area, and yeah, we will be doing a fiber drop to every home or business.
And just a follow-up, will their homes be able to handle the kind of data that you're pushing into them, or will folks need to rewire or redo, or are they pulling off Wi-Fi's that you can do this off of Wi-Fi that now they can do it?
We've been going more, another great question, we've been going more wireless internally. So we would not have to, they would not have to reconfigure any wiring within their home. And if there was something that needed to be done, that would be part of our installation, not anything that we would sort of impose on them. But we're looking more and more to go with wireless deployments. We have an optical network terminal that we put on each customer residence, and we've made that a wireless connection. We have a Wi-Fi router in our homes, each home that we deploy into. So, that's where the industry's going, and certainly that's where we want to be as well.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Okay, thanks very much, Dan.
Thank you.
So we need to place this on the agenda. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to place this on the agenda. We have a motion second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. John, by the way, will you be available for the county board meeting next Thursday?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think it might be interesting just for you to kind of get out and talk about your services. And
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, in fact, if I could add, Mr. Mooses, that we're required by law to have a public hearing. We're having that at the county board because we are required under
the law to notify any existing holders of a franchise. So there'll be a public hearing scheduled for our meeting next Thursday.
I know it's already been published. So, okay. All right, very good. Thanks. Okay. Authorizing emergency repair to water main break at Sunny Hill Nursing Home. So moved. Second.
We need to get a little bit of information from Mike on
Do we?
this. We do.
Do we have to? All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
Look at him, Jim for the day.
Melissa, okay. Melissa, do you want to?
Actually, I would like for Mike to explain one of the bids for you. Under the purchasing ordinance for an emergency repair like this, we are required to possibly get 3 bids. Due to the circumstances at Sunny Hill, Mike had a little bit of trouble doing that, but I wanted him to make comment on one of those bids that you received, Michael, if you could.
The blacktop?
Yeah, the blacktop.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, the plumbing
obvious-
had to be done, but the blacktop.
Obviously, we had to repair the water main break. That was my Friday and Saturday weekend. So that's been done, and there was also a storm sewer that the water was pouring into, and it was gushing out. So we had to fix the water main break, fix the storm sewer. Now we have to repair the blacktop. I got a first estimate of $19,000, and I just got a one this morning for $13,000. So I will get that in written form.
Let me just say that, you know, we follow the purchase policy in relation to emergency. I assume that is run by the state's attorney's office, that Mary does take a look at it, and as long as it falls under those guidelines, you know, I don't have a real concern. So it's always a little, you know, and I will say that historically, the state's attorney's office has been pretty tough on what they consider an emergency. So, yeah, so if it clears the state's attorney's office, something we had to take care of, yeah, I'm okay with it. Is there any other? Okay, I need a motion on this?
I think we had it.
Okay, we had a motion and a second? That's right, we did. All in favor? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have declaring sheriff's seized vehicles surplus.
Moved.
Moved? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Renewing contract for the telecommunications time and material.
Moved.
Moved? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Replacement hire pre-posting for supervisor assessments office. Moved? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Replacement hires for land use department, development analyst 1.
Moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Authorizing for the temporary storage of impounded vehicles currently loaded on the public safety complex site. All I will say about this is we need to do this to help us with our construction of the law enforcement agencies. Got a motion? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Authorizing MOU for the Humboldt Bridge project with IDOT, Centerpoint, and Joliet. Motion second. Is there any discussion? Any comments you want to make? Is Centerpoint still here? If you are, we've kept you here all this time.
Can someone just briefly comment on this? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Nick, do you want to? Center, okay. Well, let Nick make a comment. Then Centerpoint can come down also.
Nick's out in the hall.
Well, I think that Mary can do it. Mary, yeah, let's let Mary do it. So Mary?
So this is an agreement that involves the County of Will, City of Joliet, Illinois Department of Transportation, and Centerpoint, and it is to explore the possibility of building a toll bridge over the Des Plaines River at Humboldt Road. The agreement does not require any financial input from the County of Will. The roads are not ours. However, under state statute, under the Toll Bridge Act, it is the responsibility of the county to authorize that toll bridge and to set the toll rates at the time that should happen. This agreement is not the application by CenterPoint. At some time in the future, they will come back to county board after they have explored the feasibility of a toll bridge. But this is just a cooperative agreement where certain commitments are made by the City of Joliet, by IDOT, by the County of Will, so that CenterPoint, in expending money up front, has some assurances that the various government entities are on board with this project.
Okay. Any other questions? Reagan, do you have a question?
I know I had talked to Nick maybe last week or something. I had brought it up because one of my residents, and actually my assistant over at my law office lives in Elwood, and she was concerned about one of the roads being turned into a truck route. And we had talked about this resolution coming up, and I just wanted to, you know, I would hope that this resolution also is to ensure that we aren't opening, on our roads at least, on opening up any truck routes, or, you know, the whole purpose of the Humboldt Bridge is to alleviate the traffic. And what Nick and I had discussed too is that it would be disadvantageous to open up any truck routes for, you know, for CenterPoint and this project. So I'm just hoping that's the intention, and I want that to be the intention of this board with this resolution.
Yeah, I believe it is. But, you know, Mr. Gould, you're out there, right? Bruce Gould, I'm sorry. I know Don Gould. Bruce Gould. You know, Bruce, why don't you come down here for a second? Because I'm going to not put you on the spot, but put you on the spot. You know. I know. Put you in the spotlight. I'm thinking, hey, you know, you're going to be retiring soon. You know, so what the heck? You know, we can really beat up on you now. But I think what it is, I think the reason I asked Bruce to come down is that this potentially does have a lot of benefit for our system in relation to freight and freight routes and impact on the county system, along with the state system. But I'm kind of making that statement, maybe looking for your concurrence, or maybe you can just make comment of that this potentially has a positive impact on our overall system.
Well, absolutely it does, because as we all know, with the closing of Strawn Drive, that alternate access is now removed. There is no secondary access into the intermodals at this point. So obviously, this would be a secondary access that can be utilized. Right now, we have the Arsenal Road interchange, and we've got Laraway Road. Anybody familiar with Laraway Road at Route 53 with the trucks, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So this will be an alternate from the utilizing that access point. So yeah, this will be a big help to the system.
Because when Strom Road was closed, of course, it had considerable impact on the county system. Now we've done a jurisdictional transfer on Arsenal Road, but that doesn't mean that there's still not an impact. It's just not on our system, but it has an impact on the state system.
Yeah, our county highway down South Wilmington Peatone Road is still seeing the effects of that too.
They're still seeing the impact of that, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think this is a potential solution to relieve some of the truck traffic. CenterPoint is I don't know exactly how it'll be structured financially, but right now CenterPoint's taking on most of the financial. Somebody can come down if you'd like from CenterPoint.
Come on,
Brian.
Come on.
Come on, he is. You can flip a coin, see who's coming down, or you can both come. You know, or all three is. That way, you know, there's confidence in numbers.
We're still working on this. They just need to stand up and move after all this sitting.
Oh, yeah. I'm over 40 now for the week.
You're going to show. You're going to get them all in a week.
Jim, you can ask them to identify themselves.
Yeah. If each one of you would identify yourselves, just for the record, just.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Jeremy Gray, CenterPoint Properties.
Adam Margolin, outside counsel to CenterPoint.
And Brian Sheehan, also with CenterPoint.
Okay. Yeah, at this point, Jeremy, all the financial commitment has been on CenterPoint's, has done the total financial commitment so far, I mean, to move forward, correct?
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, currently, we're analyzing the feasibility of the portion of the bridge, which would be south of Route 6. Obviously, we all heard some good news from IDOT that they're going to make a commitment for that portion north of Route 6, going into 80. So, to date, we're spending money on feasibility studies, engineering studies, doing physical due diligence out there, and are still trying to, obviously figure out how that's going to all come together from a overall structure standpoint. But we're very confident that, this will happen. So, kind of more to come in the future here.
Okay, very good. I mean, I don't know if you'd like to say anything more, or if there's any questions for CenterPoint. Okay. I applaud the additional investment that you perhaps will be making in Will County, and get some of the trucks off our roads. Get them right on that interstate.
Well, we appreciate the county's support with this project, so thank you.
Okay. And, okay, so I'll entertain a motion to...
We already got it.
You got a motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Bruce. Okay, proclamations. Mr. Brooks, Mr. Mayor, you're the proclamation folk.
We have a couple.
We have a couple.
Okay, so...
Prostate cancer
prostate
awareness
awareness.
month, Take Back the Night, and then the ceremonial signing of the business labor agreement.
Okay,
will
so you,
take place.
okay, so you have all that lined up, right?
Lined up, yep.
Okay, very
Got it all
good.
lined up.
Did we, Mr. Speaker, did we get we got someone for the prostate?
Yep, we're good. We're
I
good.
think we're good.
Yep.
We're good.
Okay, all right. All right, very good. Okay, then,
Glad you're concerned about that, Herb.
okay. Appointments by the county executive.
Need a motion?
Need a motion? Move, second, all in favor? Aye, opposed, motion carries. Is there any other new business? Well, I do have other new business. We also need to place on the agenda authorizing an amendment to the McKibben Professional Service Agreement. After we negotiated or established the compensation, it was then determined later that we were going to require some additional insurance. So basically, this is to accommodate adding the insurance to the contract. Okay?
I need a resolution.
So we need a resolution for that. So I'll entertain a motion to place that on the county board agenda. Motion, second. After we approved the contract, the county required additional conditions that would require additional insurance be placed in the contract, and there's additional cost to that. So we're just bringing that into compliance, okay? So we had a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You know, the other thing I might bring up in relation to this, and we did have a discussion with all the involved folks and our insurance carriers, and of course Mary was part of that discussion. And after that discussion, you know, I do think we should make it clear what we're going to require by folks who are coming in as consultants. So it's done up front, they know. So Mary, I'm thinking that perhaps you could look at the purchasing ordinance and see what you might suggest adding to that. So when we do it, it automatically goes into the request for proposals or request for qualifications, whatever. We have a comfort level where you think, where it's automatically in, and we don't have to worry.
As the ordinance is structured right now, it provides that the county executive and other people involved in the contract would discern what the proper level of insurance is. So typically, that would come through Bruce Freefeld, and that is typically information that's put into an RFP or an RFQ. I think, so I guess I'm looking for some clarification.
Well,
I mean, because this kind of changes depending on the services and coverage risk.
I understand that. I think that when we look at the purchasing ordinance, it's not something I don't think is negotiated. It's something either you need the insurance or you don't need the insurance. If that's reviewed before the RFQ goes out or RFP goes out as part of the purchasing ordinance, then a decision is made, whether you need insurance or not.
Right, it's usually in the RFP.
Okay, but I'm just
so
saying that
we put those-
we assure that it's in there through the purchasing ordinance. It doesn't slip by, or somebody doesn't, I use Mr. Freefeld since he's with the county board, if it's something that Mr. Freefeld's doing, it's something that, maybe he doesn't think you need insurance, but then you do. So I think we should have something in the purchasing ordinance that at least reflects that it's reviewed and signed off on by someone. It's part of the checklist within that purchasing ordinance. And then that discussion takes place, maybe with you and others,
Okay.
as they're developing it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If it's on the checklist.
But you're not looking for a specific dollar amount, because
No,
that
no,
would be
no,
very
no.
difficult.
No,
Okay,
no.
that's all I
No,
was
no, no.
looking for.
It's just that, it's required, it's going to be required. I think for most, some level of insurance is most likely going to be required. There may be some specialized coverages that may be needed for certain types of work, but just to have it on as part of the checklist, and maybe that discussion takes place and the determination is made, and maybe it's something that, Mary, that even your office then would sign off on
Okay,
prior to.
sure,
Okay, all right?
yes.
Also, I need
It's just so we don't have to go back and do things twice, right? Okay.
to save a space for the resolution negotiating the vendor for the freight mobility plan.
Okay, we,
It's not on here.
okay, we also need to, okay, so, we already voted on
Did
this,
that
right?
one.
Okay, we also need leave a space for the vendor for the freight mobility plan. If I can have a motion?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. So we'll leave that on the agenda. Okay, now we're to committee reports. Land use is going to be hearing their cases on Tuesday, so
Tom's got the list.
Tom has the list if he wants to go through them. So, Mr. Weigel?
There's one zoning case and 3 resolutions we need to save space for, as far as I know.
Okay, is there any questions for Tom?
You need a motion to place the safe
No.
space.
Oh, well, okay, we need a motion to save the space for the land use and development items. Moved?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. You awake?
Good.
Public Works and Finance, Mike?
And transferring some funds with the county clerk and authorizing executive to execute necessary documents pertaining to the legal program.
Okay, so, any questions for Mr. Frizzalone? Public Works and Transportation, Mr. Gould?
Not too many this month. We're going to help Green Garden out with a bridge on Shear Road. Authorize the state's attorney for condemnation cases on Laraway Road, and a professional services agreement with Trans Systems for design from Baseline Road to Magnolia Road. And at the request of County Board Member Tumanello, install and maintain flashing school zone signs at Lincoln Way Central High School on Schoolhouse Road.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Gould? Okay. Judicial, Mr.
No report.
Honafield's not here?
We have no.
We have no report, okay. Public Health and Safety, Ms. O'Donnell.
I'm doing my usual awards for bidding different things. So we are bidding for soft goods for Sunny Hill Nursing Home, and that is for 6th Avenue, which is in the process of being completed right now for curtains and bedding and things like that. So that's all that I have.
Okay, any questions
Thank
for
you.
Ms. O'Donnell? Okay, legislative and policy, Ms. Hart?
Yeah, our, of course, our usual, but our big thing is going to be going over the travel policy.
Okay.
Do you have?
Save a space for that.
We'll save, yeah.
So you need, are you making a motion, to save
Yes.
the space for
Motion.
travel policy? Second. All in favor? Aye, opposed, motion carries. Is there any questions for Suzanne? Okay. Capital Improvements Committee?
We don't have anything, but we do have a joint. Did you already state that, Mike?
No.
Just identification of fund for the 2%, right?
Yeah.
The 2% owner contingency?
Do we have to save any space for the next cap meeting?
No, that's after the board meeting.
Did we need to save a space for that? The 2%? Is it on the agenda? I didn't look.
Oh, no, there's no resolution for the
No, that was
There's
a
not?
resolution, we were just identifying
Oh, okay.
that we were adding that line item to the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't require
Well,
a resolution.
It doesn't require a resolution. Mary,
Yeah,
It'll actually, when you pass the budget, it'll be in there.
yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
No formal resolution.
okay.
Because that's for 17 anyway, am I correct?
Yeah, so that'll, just okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I don't know. Let me ask. They're letting those contracts now. I guess, we're going to establish,
Well, we did, yeah.
we established the contingency.
We already established the budget, right, for the sheriff's department. We voted on
Well, this, yeah, but
that.
this
So
is,
this is adding to that by putting a contingency in there, right?
well, let me say this. We established the maximum, here's what I think the difference is. We passed a resolution with the maximum price. This is outside of that. This is separate. This would be a 2% of the overall budget contingency for basically the owner, the county, if they wanted to make changes. So it's not within that budget. So the budget has not been established. Now, I don't see needing any of that 2% until the fiscal year 2017, but it is a expansion of the budget.
It's expansion of the budget by 2%.
But you're not amending the contract.
No,
Vendor.
this would be
No.
separate.
So if you're not dealing with it until 2017, then you are going to be approving it with your budget ordinance.
Right.
Okay, right.
Yeah, 'cause
So
we didn't give
basically
them.
what
Because that
you've
money would
done-
just stay then in the capital fund.
Oh, that doesn't go away. It's a special fund.
Right.
It stays in a okay.
Yeah, we're not
It's
authorizing
not
them
intermingled
to,
with corporate or anything,
It's
so.
this would be established within the 2017.
right, it's not a higher not to exceed number.
Right.
That's been set, that's
Just
not
in case we
changing.
want something
Right.
additional, yeah,
So,
okay.
Yeah, no action.
All right, there's no action then, right, okay. Okay. Executive Committee, any questions for me? Okay, we're going to move along. I'll now entertain well, let me do public comments first. Any public comments? Any?
Jim's got one.
Who? Oh, Jim's got a comment. Somebody has to, come on down, Jim. Pardon? Yeah. I just want to make sure you're doing your full part-time here, Don.
I know I stand between everyone and lunch, but thank you for giving me just a brief moment to say thank you the last 2 years as a lease-paying tenant of the building at 50 West Jefferson that is part of the future of our county is a very, very important thing. And I think I heard this morning a couple of times talking about leadership. And I would suggest to you that taking the bold step that you did when you purchased the building 2.5 years ago was a bold step, but it was a strong commitment to our downtown Joliet community, which is the as I've often referred to it, as the capital of our county. And so I just want to say thank you. We're excited because our new property will be about a block and a half just south of here. We're going to be moving into the old Turk Furniture Building, which also is a legacy for us because one of our founders of the bank in downtown here was Frank Turk Sr. And so it has a little historic representation to it as well for us. And we look forward to the exciting future on that property site as the county takes steps to put together the new courthouse. And I just want to say thank you to you and the entire county board, County Executive Walsh, Speaker Mustis, and Chairperson Freitag, and Chairperson Winfrey. When all this was done and now it's progressed, we certainly appreciate your efforts and applaud your continued leadership, because the bridge that you talked about, all of those things show the dynamics of our county, and your leadership in that regard will make sure that the future of our county is a very, very positive one. So thank you for letting me speak for a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, is there any other public comments? Any comments by committee members, board members? There's no need for executive session, correct, Mary? We don't have anything. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the county board agenda as amended. So moved. Got a motion second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Almost painless. Except my watch went off 3 times that we can.